Hello, friends and kin. I hope you're well. I sincerely apologize for missing last Sunday. We had a prolific amount of rain last weekend that was much needed, so I'm not complaining about it. I actually did try to come out here and record, but I had a very difficult time trying to keep my phone dry, which is what I record these videos with. And I didn't want to risk doing any damage to my device, so I did my usual service and said, well, I'll just do the video next weekend. So here I am. Without any further ado, moving along in our reading of Roger Horne's uh, Carmina Magistra. I believe we are on verse 5 now. I should have gone on the channel to check and make sure. But, who knows? We accidentally double up on something. We may see something we didn't see the first go through. So, not that big of a deal. This actually is a really good verse, though, and it's one that I've often thought of using as a meditative chant. And I think now that I think of it and talk about it, I'm gonna give it a whirl the next time I do a meditation session. You'll see why. My beloved was born in the cool of spring, his bones buried deep in the valley. His horns erupted into bright blossoms, his tears as snowdrops in the green. My beloved towered over the field at the height of summer, his beard unfolding. His eyes were gold and sweet as honey, his belly hung like a generous peach. My beloved was slaughtered in the autumn, his blood kissed every swaying grain. His coat shifted in the cold wind as a silvered field beset with breeze. My beloved was buried in winter, his flesh as cold and still as stone. Beneath the grave his heart beat yet, as a wild music, as hooves upon the deep. So here, Brother Horne is talking to us about the cycle of the seasons and how our master, the horned god, the image of him changing as the wheel turns. And a lot of people will associate this process exclusively with Wicca, uh, and it's certainly popular imagery in those circles, at least their variation of it. And I'm not going to get into Wicca bashing or debating the validity or authenticity of Wicca. That's not what we're here to do. In a lot of circles I've been in that focus on traditional and folkloric craft, that seems to be what the conversation inevitably devolves into, Wicca bashing and and again, I want to reiterate that in spite of how common it is, that's not what we're here to do. That's not what I'm here to do. So I enjoy this imagery because it presents the master as a guide through the mysteries of the life cycle. And I think that's a healthy thing for us to attune with, because it helps us understand the pattern of our own lifespan and also appreciate its state of impermanence. But this is also a realization that though death be part of the turning of the wheel, death is not the end. Life will continue. It just changes. It changes form. And we go to that principle of, for a lot of people, we'll go directly to that principle of physics that tells us energy is and matter. They're neither created nor destroyed, they just change form. And I've seen some witches who will say that this is like a reductionist uh, portrayal of a much more complicated process. In some cases, reduction is not a bad thing. Sometimes you have to simplify a subject in order, especially for somebody who's just learning it, to be able to do that initial wrap their head around it. And that's not intended to belittle or advocate for talking down to people. Quite the opposite. Uh, some of these topics can get very complicated and have many layers to the journey of understanding. And it behooves all of us, I think, to kind of start with a relatively simple concept that we can then add on to and build on to. And so that reductionism has a place. And I'm not going to shit can somebody's work just because they simplify things for the purposes of helping people understand. But there comes a time and a place to get into the deeper intricacies and complexities of things. And when you're ready to dive into that, you'll know it if you trust your own instincts. But meditating on this concept, I think, not only does it help us relate to the seasonal cycles through the cycle of our own life, it helps us build that relationship with the land, but then it also helps us with acceptance of our own inevitable fate, and to think of it not as damnation or punishment or as something evil, but something that is just part of the natural flow of things. Going back to when I was very young and I attended church, I remember all too often the concept of death was presented as the enemy, that Jesus Christ defeated death. And death was considered a force of evil. And I don't really understand. I don't really understand where that concept evolved from, because throughout the ancient cultures of the world, at least what the things I've been exposed to along the course of my journey, most people come to an acceptance of death as just an inevitability, and they try and their spirituality teaches them to make peace with it, to understand that this is the ultimate destination, uh, and trying to defeat it is pointless. But we do have control over what happens between now and death, and that's what we need to focus on. What we can control in the here and now, and how we live, what we do with that time that we're given. But the imperialistic incarnation of Christianity seems to really focus on this idea that death is evil and something to be defeated. Christ came here to defeat it and to give us all a way to defeat it. And ultimately, I really believe that is just a completely unnatural way of looking at death. Now, that doesn't mean that because death is an assured thing that existence is pointless. And maybe that's where the notion comes from. Somebody thought that, well, if it's all just going to end one day, what's the point? Might as well just lay down and let it happen. Man, that's a really sorry perspective. to me, knowing that my time here is limited makes me place a greater value on it. I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. So what am I going to do with my time today to make sure if it ends tomorrow that I'm happy with what I did with my time? That's what I focus on. And I think that this particular verse in the Carmina Magistra is good for helping us explore those ideas in a healthy way, because again, we accept our own inevitable death, but we connect it to the greater cycles of nature around us. It kind of builds a bridge between the macro sphere of nature and the microsphere of the individual human. And anything that helps us do that, it's a powerful thing and a good thing. I usually do this at the beginning, and I just jumped right into the reading and forgot. Today, I am smoking on Aganorsa Supreme Leaf. Most of the cigars I end up liking are from Nicaragua, or make use of predominantly Nicaraguan components. Not sure why. That's just the flavor profile I gravitate to, and I've thoroughly enjoyed everything from Aganorsa Leaf with that name on it. I've thoroughly enjoyed everything I've tried. My local cigar shop just started carrying that line, and so now every time I go, I try to find ones that I haven't tried yet, to kind of make my way through the whole line, and I have yet to be disappointed. My favorites so far have been their Habano and Maduro, which is just part of their regular flagship line. I can't remember what they call it, but wonderful, wonderful stuff. And one of the things I'm going to start incorporating to allow, just indulging my ADHD, bouncing from subject to subject. I'm going to start doing a single card pull at the end of every reading to kind of give us something to meditate on for the rest of the day or the rest of the week. And I know that's what the reading does, but this is just a little something extra. Give the spirits an opportunity to talk to us through the cards. Give them a little bit more of a direct involvement. And so this was the very first deck of playing cards I used for cartomancy as the back of it. And this is the Bicycles Hidden Edition deck. And the main feature of it, all the numbered cards and suits look relatively typical, but when you get to the face cards, they're all skeletons. And I love that. See if I can find the jokers, because the jokers are interesting. There's one of them. Here's the other, my personal favorite. Very, very, very cool deck of cards. But let's see what the what guidance the spirits wish to share with us. King of Hearts. So the King of Hearts, I typically interpret that as mastering our emotions, being in control of our desires, not letting them run rampant and controlling our every move. Because if we let desire and impulse control everything we do, that can lead to some relatively chaotic results. Now, the face cards, I also interpret them as having presenting us with a duality, as is human nature. because that's a lot of what the face cards represent in the way I interpret them is different facets of human nature. And the king is control, regulation, and and the two sides of that is creating order in a responsible way. So utilizing control to create an orderly flow, an orderly structure, giving everything its place, allowing everything its place to exist, and doing so in such a way that facilitates balance. Because the other side of the king is tyrannical control, to the point of stagnating. So you exercise so much control that nothing is allowed to move or grow or evolve or change. And as a result, it dies out. And I also think it's funny that the King of Hearts in most decks features the image is the king looking like he's driving a sword through the side of his head, which is that's a very appropriate visual for somebody trying to control their desires and impulses, literally. And it's very, very frustrating. But if we want emotional well-being, we need to give our desires an avenue to be expressed, but we can't let them run our every decision. Otherwise, we will degrade into pure chaos. So balance. Give your impulses and your desires a place to be expressed in a healthy way, but don't exercise so much control that you choke the life out of them, because the result of that, as most, I think anybody watching this is smart enough to know this. I firmly have faith in you, yes, you, whoever you are watching this, to know that the more you try to choke the life out of something, the harder it is going to fight you. And it will come out in the most it'll explode and manifest in the most unhealthy ways. That's a good thought to meditate on for the upcoming week. Friends and kin, thank you so much for joining me today. As always, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend these moments with me. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next Sundee service.